I would now like to invite our invited guest for delivering the keynote address, Professor Ian Rensburg, who is the founding Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg in South Africa and currently at King's College London. So we'll get a very different perspective now about promoting culture of excellence all the way from South Africa. Welcome, Professor Rensburg.
So, good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
And friends. As we say in Johannesburg, Sanibonani. Sanibonani. And then your response is Yebo.
Yebo.
So Sanibonani really means I see you. I see you. I see your spirit before I see your being. And so it's not just hello. It is Sanibonani, I see you. And I am the person who I am because of you. And together we are meeting here today. And when I leave here, I'll be a different person. I hope you'll also be a different person as we leave here today and tomorrow, of course, after all of these wonderful conversations. So let me begin by extending sincere appreciation to Raj for this very kind invitation. It's a very special privilege and a great honor to be here with you this morning and this afternoon and tomorrow. It's really an honor to be a part of your very important conversation. And I hope that the presentation this morning, that you'll find it of some use in this journey that you are continuing to make, in the journey that we continue to make as well. And so I saw it my task this morning really to construct a careful argument for why we must pursue global excellence and stature. All of us. I think of the Taj Mahal as a representation of excellence and of global stature. Why should we all be pursuing that? In the very small contributions that we make, in the very large contributions that we make, it must become a way of living, as opposed to something that's imposed upon us. So I really want to construct, therefore, the case this morning. I hope to be able to complete it in my 35 minutes. And so the idea is to construct the contextual case, so global, regional, country level, and then from the institution inward, also to build the case, to see if these two can be brought together. And that's really the task then that I've given myself. So there are two parts to the task, as will I show in the outline. So I reflect therefore on the context that we find ourselves in. I suggest that we are in a new epoch. And the challenge for us is, are we going to seize the moment? In the social sciences, how many social sciences colleagues in the room? Okay, cool. In the social sciences we speak of being a subject or being an object. Being an object means that we are an observer to this new epoch. To be the subject means that we are the actors. We are critical interlocutors with this conversation about the meaning of global excellence and stature. And even prior to that, the epoch that we find ourselves in. And so I want, therefore, to do that, but I also want to argue in defense of the traditional mission of the university, and then demonstrate three kinds of responses to this epoch, three possible. I will then reflect on the nature of academic work, and how do we nurture the capacity to respond to the challenges of the new epoch. And then the second half of my presentation, I'll come to the heart of the conversation. I could have jumped straight in there, right? but I thought that it's essential for us to build a case carefully. And so that's what I've set myself out to accomplish with you this morning. And so I'm going to run quickly through these. These are simply notes for you to consider in the journey that we are all undertaking. I said that the next 5 decades, leading to 2070, will see us experience unprecedented changes. I don't think all of us thoroughly appreciate the fact that we are going to see massive urbanization in India, in Africa. If I think of Lagos as a city, it will double in the course of the next 50 years. Now, if you've been in Lagos, wow, imagine it doubling. Imagine medium-sized cities becoming the size of Mumbai, or Bombay and Delhi. And imagine the massive change that means. So basically, we're saying that our populations are going to become 70% urban, 30% rural. That's a massive change. If we think that the environment today in Delhi is bad or is troubling, imagine it in the course of the next 2 generations. There'll be greater demand for energy, there'll be greater demand for water, there'll be greater demand for food in the course of this transition. A contradiction-filled, I'm going the wrong direction here now, you see. Let me go back. No, it's that way, right? That's the way. Apologies, press the wrong button there. A bit of a contradiction. We'll see aging on the one hand, and we will see youth dominating populations on the other hand. So in Asia, we will see aging. We're seeing it already in parts of Asia. On the other hand, in Africa, we're going to see, unless there's something done about population management, I'm very careful about that terrain, I don't want to stray into that terrain, except to say, the outlook is that Africa's population is going to double in the next generation and then double again. So from 1.1 billion, 4.4 billion, 70% urbanized, 70% under the age of 35. You can see what that outlook potentially is. Well, we're beginning to see the beginnings of real revolutionary innovations in science and technology. We're only at the beginning of this new epoch in that regard, and we know machine AI, machine learning, human interactions, human-machine interactions. We're only at the beginning of that storyline that's going to fundamentally restructure the way we as human beings behave, at least in the middle classes. I'm not so sure about the 40% of our people who live in poverty across the globe, but at least the middle class are going to interact differently than the way we are interacting now. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, not just young people, also middle-aged people. They are so attached to this smartphone. There's no eye contact anymore. They're even texting while driving. Yeah? Don't worry about texting while walking, texting while driving. And so you can see they would love to have those, what do you call them, driverless cars, right? Okay, so we're at the beginning of a new, fundamentally new era. A rebalancing of economic power. I think that's quite self-evident from developed to developing countries. And then I suggest that these offer new opportunities, but risks. I think our challenge as a university is to help our nations understand both of these, and ideally to help our nations seize the opportunities that lie ahead for us. The key drivers, first one is self-evident. Despite everything about Make America Great Again, despite everything about making Britain great again, this tilt is simply underway. Nothing is going to stop it. Economic barriers, new economic trade barriers are not going to stop it. Interconnectivity, the price of smartphones falling over the next generation significantly. And of course the other equipment, the e-tablets and so on. But interconnectivity is going to enable universities such as Jindal University to be offering their exceptional programs online. Yeah? And not distance education, please. Yeah? We're talking serious online learning that will undergo a massive revolution itself, and is going to challenge especially our accrediting bodies. How do you then accredit those programs if you're not self-accredited already? Climate change, the least said the better. The only good news the UN has told us recently is that the ozone layer is healed, almost healed completely. And that, why is it healed? Because of deliberate and decisive action taken by nations. It demonstrates it's possible for us to turn climate change from where it's sitting now. Science and technology, I've mentioned that, is a major driver. And I've implicitly said the rise of Africa. If you drive up from 1.1 billion to 4.4 billion, you are going to shift the world. You're either going to tilt the world, the planet, in the wrong direction, or you're going to tilt it in the right direction. What do I mean by that? If you go from 1.1 to 4 billion in the next 50 years, and you consume the same energy per person, per capita, the same food per capita, the same water per capita, what's going to happen to our planet? If Africa copies the Chinese style, which has copied the West industrialization style, I've put it that if we do that, we're going to crash our planet. And so huge intervention in science, technology, in the humanities and social sciences are going to be required for us to avoid our planet by the end of the century being unable to sustain itself. The planet dying in effect. I think that is the risk. That the actions that we take in the next 25 years puts our planet grave risk of not being able to renew itself, and so slowly dying. And we can see the consequences of that come the end of the century. So these changes point to, I suggest on the one hand, a significantly more integrated, multipolar and interdependent world. Despite what everybody says about make America great, great, this one great, that one, make Brazil great again. Despite all of that, let's work on the model of a more integrated, multipolar, but interdependent world. As we know, if something happens in one part of the world, it's going to tilt the world in a particular direction. Africa goes in a particular direction, it's going to tilt the world in a particular direction. So, increasing dependence on the active construction of knowledge societies. I think that is a significant implication. Societies, knowledge societies, constantly develop new ideas, technologies, methods, products and services. This new world of multiple knowledge nodes will include the development of South-North and South-South knowledge nodes. If you think of the investment, just speaking with Raj this morning, if you think of the investments made by Europe in the last 2 decades, think of the Erasmus program by way of example, massive investments made. All in the north. It is time that in the south we are able to knit together massive south-south projects, and we're going to talk about that in one of the panel sessions, the BRICS session in particular. So, what are some of the resultant changes that we are already experiencing, and if we're not experiencing them, that we will experience. Massification of access and widened participation. You know, the classic response of our academics in our senates is that quality is falling. And my response always in Senate is it's our duty to make sure that our output standards always rise. The input standards might vary, right? We might get more and more underprepared students. How do I say? You can't import a different lot of students from another country. If this is the quality that we've got to, in the process of training, of working with our students, we've got to put in place the scaffolding and the support systems, tutors, senior tutors, by way of example, in order to bring them to a level where they can exceed the exit standards, the ever-growing exit standards. So, massification, and massification can't go the old way. The old way is brick and mortar. We don't have the cash. States don't have the resources. The public don't have the resources to be able to fund our traditional way. And it's a difficult thing for me and for you to accept, isn't it? Well, not to accept, but to engage with. Because for us, this is the standard. And my response is, how do we make sure online exceeds this standard that we have available in these ideal circumstances? I mean, all of us went through this kind of experience. It's the best thing. Your undergrad studies, isn't it? It's the best time of your life. Especially if you're living away from home and in residence. It's the best time of your life. Nothing can replace it. And now we are saying to the next generation, we can't afford you. We just don't have that kind of capacity. Well, we're going to have to make online cool. And it's going to have to meet the standards. So it's a challenge for us. I don't have the answer. All I'm saying is, there it is. We're not going to be able to put an additional 50 million young people on top of the 38 or 40 million that are in university now, 50 million in university. We're not going to be able to finance another 50 million with the current model that we have in place. And so there's a challenge, a big challenge for us. The valorization of STEM as opposed to social sciences and humanities. I think we need to get over this. We need to get over this. Both of them matter. And we need to get to a point where we recognize that if we do big global research projects, these things are connected. Again, the example of AI and machine learning. You can't just have it without the social sciences and humanities. In the same room, same research project, same set of advice. Otherwise you have social science and humanities coming up with their own ideas, and the engineers and scientists coming up with their own ideas. And so I think we have to think more and more in an integrated manner in the time ahead. Interesting point about inter-university competition and declining differentiation. I think it's something to watch out for. Because everybody wants to look and feel the best, isn't it? The university with the greatest status, everyone wants to be a wannabe. The university. A wannabe Oxford, right? A wannabe Harvard. I'll come to that in a moment. It's something we need to get over as well. Fierce competition for top academics and for the best students. Got to watch out for that. Big focus on cost efficiency. Remember, I'm not saying these things are bad things. I'm saying they're in play, and we've got to adjust our play as universities to take account of them. Rising nationalism. I mean, nationalism is a nice cover for actually neo-fascism. Or built around ethnicity, built around minorities, built even around majorities. Right? Questioning What is truth? Yeah? What is truth? And suggesting to us that our truths are untruths. I mean, we exist. I'll come to this in a moment. We exist as universities. Through our academics who help us uncover, who bring light. Yeah? That's why we exist. So why must we be bulldozed or boxed out of our positions by those who, in the so-called post-truth world, are coming with their PR exercises and questioning the university and causing our universities, in fact, to be factionalized and fractionalized? I'll come to that. Innovation, entrepreneurism, the university is an enterprise. I'll come to that briefly as well. Got to watch out for that. I've mentioned shift to online, increasing demands from stakeholders for full scrutiny and public accountability. That's okay. I think it's okay. But we've got to prepare for it. If we're not prepared for it, we've got to enable ourselves to do so. The fraying of academic freedom and institutional autonomy is a major concern in the so-called post-truth world. That's a major risk to our universities. So, what's our response? What are our possible responses? My main point is in the first bullet there. We must respond in a manner that preserves our traditions, integrity, viability, while engaging with and recognizing the legitimacy, critically engaging these new challenges. I mean, that's the balance that we're going to strike. And it is in action that we strike it, but we need to think before we act. Or as we act, we need to think. As we think, we need to act. And that's praxis, isn't it? So we're challenged to move beyond innovation that is piecemeal and incremental. We need to be far more systematic in our approach. We can't just jump, there's a new excellence initiative and we jump without thinking. Yeah? Without being prepared for it, without anticipating it. And then we disrupt our entire university or university system. Because maybe the thing is not well thought through, it's half-baked, well-intended, but maybe half-baked. So, we must engage in a critical dialogue, reflexive dialogue with our society, and I argue, therefore, offer our society a responsive and engaged university, a transforming knowledge institution that offers it in this epoch that we find ourselves intellectual, moral, and ethical stewardship that seeks to advance those high ideals. What are those high ideals of humanity? They're freedom, democracy, they're equality, they're social justice, they're about human dignity and inclusion. I'm just mentioning those 5 because for me they stand out as the high ideals of humanity. I'm going to skip through some of the slides, except in this post-truth world. The second last bullet, to repeat what I said a moment ago, it is through scholarship and knowledge production that universities bring light. Right? I mean, that's what we exist. To the dark and importantly, the discomforting sides of life. I mean, that's what the public intellectual is all about, the academic is all about. It's about bringing the ugly things, bring it to light. And sometimes we have to pay the price for it. Hopefully not always, but sometimes we have to pay the price. And this is why academic freedom sits at the core of the academic project and of the university. And so our virtue, university's virtue, that's what it is. And it needs to be made self-evident in this post-truth set of ideas. I'll just put that little quote up there. It says that it is an interaction, that's between university and society, that requires on the part of the university a complex mix of commitments. Commitment on the one hand to be a creative force in this historical process, this epoch, deeply and passionately involved in the affairs of society, but on the other hand, to provide society with the intellectual stewardship that can come only from rigorous and dispassionate analysis of reality. I mean, for a socialist like myself, the idea of a dispassionate engagement with inquiry is always hard, but that's what we have to do. And so, key message: to advance these ideals require a healthy, yet mutually, critically reflective and constructive relationship between state and university. And by state here, I mean in the broad sense, the nation state. I should have said nation state. But state really means not government. It also includes civil society. But I'm not giving a lecture on that. I'm simply saying that we need this engaging, mutually constructive, critical, discursive relationship between state and society and university and society. So, our traditional response, the ivory tower. No, we can't. Those are the. I was at a conference 2 years. When was it? When we were here? 3 years ago. And I remember making a presentation, and one of the academic colleagues must be an eminent academic colleague. No, I don't agree with. And then I said, hey, the ivory tower. Hey, the problem with the ivory tower is that the ivory tower does not want to engage with these epoch-changing and epoch-making facts on the ground. And so the response typically is anti-managerialism, anti-corporatization of the university. Yeah? And all that I'm saying is let's have a critical, discursive, but mutually constructive conversation about the need for leadership in a very special place called the university. I'll come to that in a moment. I suggested that the biggest weakness with the return to the ivory tower in this epoch-making moment, biggest weakness with that, is that academic freedom becomes an end in itself. Actually, academic freedom is a means. It's our means as academics to be able to intercede in our work and into society. It's not an end in itself, and I think it's a useful and important conversation that we need to have. I had to find something interesting, the entrepreneurial casino. The university is basically a factory of degrees, of diplomas, of certificates. Yeah? And therefore, let's make this factory better. Yeah? Let's make this factory, streamline it, get it well organized. Yeah? And let's pursue relentlessly the enterprisation of the university. Yeah? Let's create everywhere a new little startup, hub. That's the big thing, isn't it? Every university must have a startup hub, because we're able then to convert, get these young people involved. And that's wonderful, nothing wrong with it. The key thing is it an end in itself? Or is it a means to serving the greater good? All that I'm asking us intellectually, let's just all the time ask ourselves as we become engrossed and engaged. End, means. Means, ends. Does the end serve the means? Does the means serve the ends in our conversations? So the pathfinder, I suggest, is simply that we have to find our path. We have to find a path that preserves our traditions, at the same time a path that responds and enables society, the nation state, to seize the moment in this in this new epoch. There are a few slides. I'm not going to go through all of them, except to highlight a couple of them. So we know, as the first bullet reminds us, that really we are about knowledge production. In the first instance, my colleagues who are teaching focus and I always have an argument. And I say, no, come on. Your dissemination, your teaching, my dissemination, my teaching comes from knowledge. Yeah? It comes from the production of knowledge. That is really what universities are supposed to be all about. They're involved in their reproduction, right, is about knowledge. Otherwise they're going to die like our earth by the turn of the century. They're going to die if they are not involved, of course, unless they're a college, masquerading as a university. Yeah? Carrying the name university, but actually it is a college. Okay, in the South African sense, a college means a non-degree granting institution. It means maybe a 2-year program, post-school. I don't know, I must be careful in using that concept. I know in the US, of course, college means typically university. It's the same as university. So, 2 points about research and teaching. We know that good research requires motivation. It's primarily, I didn't remove that word craft, I'm sorry, because somebody really gave me a hammering and said, actually, we're not craft speaking. We are professionals. We are intellectuals. We are professionals, and correctly so. It's an old school word to speak of the academic craft. A new school word is, we're speaking of the profession, and intellectual work as a profession. So yes, it relies on innovation and creative imagination, but it's individual, and often in groups. So how do we mobilize these colleagues of ours in university when they're so often so disengaged in the institution? Teaching, similarly, it might be more routinized and organized. However, it's practiced by individuals. Again, it's difficult to penetrate teaching for outsiders to get in there. And as we know, I mean, here's another nice little quote. Academics recognize no boss. Isn't it, Raj? They choose to see themselves as individual entrepreneurs, albeit on a steady salary, right? Like rich peasants, they till their own patch, but display little desire for corrective action and little interest in the larger university. This is obviously, maybe it's an old school statement, huh?
No, very valid.
To which they are limply attached, right? As they grumble about the demands it makes on, quote unquote, their time and the problem of parking. I don't think you've got a parking issue. But I thought that's useful because that is the challenge. Now, how do we connect the epoch-making challenge to an institution that operates in this traditional manner? And how do we preserve the tradition at the same time? And so, how do we connect? Yeah? How do we connect in a world in which academics work as colleagues, in a collegial, ideally, not competitive, right? Ideally, not complaining about each other. Ideally in a competitive manner, collegial manner, and a consensus-building manner within departments that constitute the individual units of faculties and of the university. And therefore, how do we achieve now alignment between the individual colleagues, the departments, the faculties, and the university? And I always find the dean to be the most troubling office. In the middle, right? The classic middle manager, senior middle managers, or how do we call it now? The senior general manager, the classic senior general manager, right? who sits in the middle between the academic who's doing teaching and research and saying, please, leave me alone. And then Raj saying, this is where we're going. Right? So how do we connect those things together? And, I mean, where do we begin to look? So you look for a strong framework of model governance. And where do we find some of them? We find them nation states, maybe, I don't know. As we're now into this post-truth era, so-called post-truth era, the nation state is becoming a troubled concept. Even before the post-truth age, it was a troubled concept, as we were seeking to build more inclusive nation states, as those who have been excluded, women, South Africa, black, disabled, as we make this more inclusive. The kind of provocative statement of Madame Thatcher, that to support the English cricket team is to be English, clearly irrelevant. That means that if you're supporting the Indian or Pakistani or Sri Lankan team there in London at the Oval or at Lord's, you're not English. When in fact your passport, what do you call it? A citizen of that country. It's just changed the idea of the nation state. So, do we look at Hinduism as a role model? You know, we know that they're positive, constructive parts, they're also troubling parts of it. Do we look at Christianity, Buddhism, simply, or all of them? Confucianism, Islam, Judaism, Taoism? But surely if we look at those, there must be interesting ideas there for us to begin to say, how do we build this kind of coherence in our institution as well? So just some ideas. And so a starting point is that universities, like enterprises, social units with the same human lifeblood as any other type of social construct. And so we've seen typically 5 kinds of way leaders build or connect the epoch, if you like, to an institutional mission, to the individual academics. A compelling mission, vision, and a sense of pride in the institution is one way of, I'm sure you've read about kind of vision-driven leaders, are able to build this compelling idea about the institution. Implementing, second option is accountability and consequence management. You know what that is, right? Get the best, hold them accountable, pay them well, recognize them, fire them if they don't perform. Don't think that works so well in the university, right? Yeah?
Easy to say.
Develop an entrepreneurial spirit. Others are saying, always be entrepreneurial, always be dynamic. Think about things differently. Don't think about things the way your peers are thinking about them. Turn them on their heads. Mobilize individual initiative and achievement. So focus on the individual. Really, all the time, focus on lifting their spirits. All the time, focus on, in public, say, hey, so-and-so, Professor so-and-so has really done well. Now let's give him a warm round of applause, or her a warm round of applause. You can see I'm still using the old school he and she, right? And so that's kind of typically what happens. Mobilizing individual initiative and achievement and recognizing it all the time. And then fifthly, recognizing and celebrating staff. So those are kind of 5 ways in which we mobilize our people. But typically we use them in combination. So, I'm not going to go through the detail here, except to say the starting point for this mobilization of staff and of enterprises like universities, I argue, is the presence and durability of authentic leadership. If you have a leader that you have in the institution at VC level, at faculty level, you really believe in, right? Doesn't it make a big difference? Yeah? Authentic leader is self-aware. I'm not going to go into that, maybe it's another lecture. Yeah? Self-awareness. Yeah? Not self-awareness is as in look at myself. Self-awareness as in noticing what's going on in the room, as in taking care of the emotion that you can see and the engagement that you don't see and the lack of emotion. That's what I mean, self-awareness, so that you can bring the colleague in to the conversation. So that's self-awareness, self-regulation. Things are going bad at home. I don't bring that stuff in. I don't show. Yeah? It's difficult. Some of us say we must integrate. Others are saying we must separate. Right? So when I come in, I'm in that situation. So here's my argument always. There's bad news. There's difficulty that we're going through. And we are here in conversation now. Be here. Be here and give the very best that you can. Don't be outside there. Be here. This is the moment that we need to be in. Yeah? It's a blessing to be here in this moment. And let's separate these things so that we can look. Anyway, that's just an idea about self-regulation. Positive psychological capabilities. Some of us walk around always negative. Some of us, it's just the way maybe we were brought up at home as in our tween years. It's just the way, mom and dad or uncle and aunt. It's just the way. And we've got to work at that. To turn that thing of always looking for obstacles, always looking for what to remove. Let's focus on the positive. And you'll be amazed what you are able to discover as you focus on the positive. Growth and development, and effective and consistent communication. I think I need to move on now. Let's keep it on. So, quick run through the second part of the presentation. Remember, the first part was really about arguing the case, building carefully with you. We don't have enough time, but building carefully with you the contextual case as to why we must rise up, why we can't continue as it's been in the past, why we must pursue and engage this new era, this new epoch, with excellence and to the very best of our abilities. Then what I tried to do was to point out that actually universities are particularly different kinds of institutions. Academics lie at the heart of our institutions. Academics work differently from a factory. They are not skilled craftsmen and women. They are intellectuals. They work in a particular style, in a particular manner. It will require a particular kind of leadership to connect them to the greater cause. To be able to create a moving institution, a responsive institution. So, key lessons in the search. The key message I want to leave with you is we need to create virtuous cycles of excellence. Not many in our institutions. We can create 3 or 5 such, and you'll be amazed what you're able to accomplish within a decade. University of Johannesburg, 12 years old, 13 years old, outside the top 2,000 universities when we started it. Brand new university, merger of 3 different institutions. Outside the top 50 in Africa, nobody knew of it, except the name Johannesburg is a cool name to have. 10 years later, the university is in the top 400. The university is number 5 in Africa. Why? We did focus on the right things. Didn't focus on rankings. My message always is rankings will follow. Yeah, focus on the right things. So what did we do? I'll just share that very briefly with you. However, before we go there are systemic issues that need to be considered. Can't have a high-performing science, technology, and higher education system. Can't have it in the absence of coordination at the top. If there's a university minister, and there is a science and technology minister, and they don't speak to each other, and they do their own things, there's a problem. because you're not going to be able to mobilize the kind of passion and compassion for what is required in this new epoch. It's going to require substantial investments. We've heard earlier from our colleague about the kinds of investments in the eminence initiatives. It seems to me that you're going to need major chair initiatives, excellence chairs initiatives in the country. And South Africa, Canada, China are two examples of countries that have gone that route of saying excellence chairs. This year we're issuing 40 or 50 excellence chairs. You compete for those excellence chairs. We commit 10 years to that excellence chair, and 5 years we're going to review the performance of that excellence chair externally. So it's going to need massive investment. Massive investment. So the eminence initiative is great, but we're going to need deep-seated interventions inside the universities. Our biggest challenge, just have a look at that. In India, per million, 200 full-time researchers. In Japan, on the other extreme, 5,153. So we're not going to be able to compete with publications contribution, knowledge contribution, at the scale that everybody expects us to contribute. And so we're going to have to grow the base of researchers, active researchers in our institutions. And so the eminence initiatives are great, but it's not building the base necessarily at the scale that's required for us to be able to respond to this new epoch. So an excellent school system is important. Location, I can speak about that on another occasion, what location means. All I'm saying is find your mojo. Where you're located now, at this point in time, find out what are the benefits that you can show the world of being located where you are. Skip, I'm out of time now. Please be aware that chasing rankings can subvert a tradition, a culture, a way of doing things. And be ready for it if you're going to go down that particular route. I use the example of, if you think that having a medical school is going to help your rankings, think again. Yeah? University of Warwick, example. They went that route. Not even 5 years later, they realized it was the biggest mistake that they made. Because of the level of investment that's required. And then, by the way, you're also rank, even when you make that investment, because you don't have the specialities or specializations. So think about your strategy as you go forward. Rivalry and competition is good. It drives excellence. It drives innovation. It's good. But there must be room for collaboration as well. So if you think of MIT and Harvard next to each other, look at the value game. Yeah? In my city, Johannesburg, we've got Witwatersrand University in Johannesburg, and we're fierce competitors, but we also collaborate. But we are damn fierce competitors for top scholars. So listen to this, my Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research becomes the Vice Chancellor of Witwatersrand University. The two of us had carefully built together our research strategy. Yeah? He's just turned his back on UJ. Guess what happens? He starts recruiting from the very people that we had recruited to build this institution with Johannesburg's capacity. So it's fierce competition, but at the same time, it drives up excellence. It drives up one's sense of innovation. Couple of pointers before I have to stop. One of them I want to pause on is this one. Internationalization must be above reproach. It must be part of the DNA of the institution. If you are pursuing global excellence in stature, it can't be a debate that we have forever in Senate, right, or forever in the university. That is if it's an important thing for us. And I believe it's important. It should be above debate and aligned with the institutional vision. I believe it's part of your vision and strategy and plan in the instance of Jindal. I mean, the thing I've learned, when in the right company, the company lifts you up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So please don't jump into every international grouping. You've got to be careful, select carefully. Yeah? Otherwise you're going to spread yourself so thin, waste the limited resources that you have. So carefully select your partners. And the important thing when selecting that partner, keep in mind the means and the end that you want to accomplish. University of Johannesburg worked hard to get it into Universitas 21. It's one of the 3 leading research networks in the world. Guess what happens? The good company elevates you. Bad company pulls you down. Okay, let me not go there. Okay? And all that I'm saying is, it enables your reputation to go beyond your actual contribution to publications output. Just think about that. Yeah? Build, second one I want to pause at, build critical mass and momentum around magnets. I like the word magnets. So if you've got 3 or 5 strong programs, teaching programs or research initiatives, let everybody know about it. Don't sit there in your institution and nobody knows about it. In your institution, nobody knows about it outside your institution. Everybody's going to know. And then elevate it. Yeah? Create it as a real magnet. I make the point always, 3 or 4 magnets. Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, Cambridge, probably have got 4 or 5, maybe 10 magnets. Yeah? They're not good in everything. They're not good in everything, but what happens? I forget what this concept or theory is. But the idea here is, when you've got these magnets working, they have a multiplier effect in the institution, so that even an also-ran program, but worst case in rankings, by the way, is sometimes the university does not even have a program, but it gets ranked by peer academics for excellence in that particular program. I mean, that's the perverse example. The idea really is, once you've got 3 or 4 magnets, it pulls students and academics into the magnets, but also into the broader sphere and field of the institution. So, 3 or 5 selected research niches, make at scale the right appointments. One of the things that we introduced now was distinguished professors, so serious cut above, and our professors don't like it. And then we say strive for it. If you need any help to become a distinguished professor, we will help you. But the idea is really to pull in the best of the very best, the top 1%, top 1.5%, into, and turn those magnets into genuine and sustained magnets. Similarly, distinguished visitors, scholars, fellows, and collaborators. This enables you to crowd into those nodes a range of the best global talent. And as I say, a great reputation and global ranking in turn enables the university to mobilize gifts, donations, additional government funding. Before I close, research, last one I'm going to pause it. Maybe those 2 I must pause it, just to illustrate how you do it. Research and teaching are integral. That's something I believe in absolutely. The University of Johannesburg has gone that route. And we've created parallel pathways. You can become a teaching professor, you can become a research professor, because we value teaching equally. I always make the point, everybody must do research, whether you're a teacher or a traditional researcher. And so we created the Scholarship of Learning and Teaching Academy at the University of Johannesburg, and a chair of excellence in the Scholarship of Teaching, because others want to know how you teach, how you learn. Others want to know how your students learn. Others want to know about your curriculum, about your program, about your experience in time. And you need to share that. So everybody can and must do research. So, resources we're always told are limited. Don't have enough money. So what do? Simplest solution is, we top slice 5%. of the entire academic project. Yeah? Of course, that is after we have searched for every cent and penny within the operating divisions. We've stripped them, right? Now we go to the faculties and we say we're going to top slice 5% of your budget. But we're going to reinvest it in you on a competitive basis. Yeah? So, please, let's not say that we don't have money. Vacant posts. How many vacant posts do you have? You don't have a turnover. You don't have people who leave.
Our attrition rate is something like 3%.
So 3% of 350, that's 10 a year. So use the 10 posts to drive that project. Take them, yeah, and say to the colleagues, it's going to go back to the academy, but you're going to compete for those positions. Obviously, you have to weigh that carefully. I'm just giving a broad idea. So, rankings. Virtue or vice? You've got to think about it. It's typically commercially driven, right? Did you mention the India ranking from QS? Yeah? So QS has got an India ranking now as well, right? Historic reputation dominated. Yeah, I'm not going to go in, we're out of time. What do they actually tell us? Because they're so heavily dominated by reputation, what do they actually tell us? Nothing new. Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, blah, 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 blah. Right? It tells us nothing new. It only tells us around the fringes, what's happening around the fringes. In the, what do you call, in the 300, 400 to 800 ranking. That's the fringe of the ranking that it tells you. And of course it excites you that you are in the top 800. Right? Top 800 means, okay, 25,000 universities. Top 500 means top 2%. Yeah? Top 1,000 means top 4%. It's cool, isn't it, to be in the top 4%? Right? So, actually nothing new except around the fringes. But peer comparison, I make the point. And then my last slide or two. They measure research output, measure impact, they measure research collaboration. In this set here, stripped of reputation. So in the instance of ARU or Shanghai, Europe, Turkey, US News and World Global University Rankings, they strip out reputation, which is useful for us, right, who are sitting in the fringes, right, because we can then actually compare apples with apples in the research field. On the other hand, others measure reputation. They add reputation, as we know. QS 50% reputation. So there's not going to be much change at the top. Times Higher, 33% reputation, right? They also have other rankings. They've got world class, they've got young universities, they've got regional rankings, and so on. EM, that one is emerging economies ranking. What does this mean for us in the South? Please remember this. Harvard. Total Harvard output is total of South Africa's output. I shouldn't say total Harvard. Harvard's output equates to all of South Africa. Stanford equates to India's 39 central universities output. France is the total Africa output. Yeah? UK plus France plus Germany output is BRICS output. Yeah? So you get the drift. So that's why I'm asking the question. It can't be right that a handful of universities are setting the research agenda. It's no more than 20 universities that share between them 60-65% of world output. Can't be right. It simply can't be right. That must be a compelling vision and mission that must drive us in the generation ahead. Let's just see. Okay, that's it. Just one there. So, my simple point is be realistic. Set challenging targets for yourself. But it must be achievable. Okay. Top 10, let's be realistic. Top 100, yeah. Top 200, maybe top 500, maybe top 800, maybe top 1,000. These are not bad things. Remember, they're not ends in themselves. They're means to help us to be able to say, in a comparative group, institutions that we want to compare ourselves with. Maybe you want to compare with Harvard, but that's okay. Let's be realistic. Let's set a set of institutions. They might sit initially in that group of 600 to 800. Let's try and get into that space. Let's understand those institutions. And let's focus our efforts in the period ahead. I said means ends. You can also ask dog tail. Does the tail wag the dog wag the tail? Do rankings wag the... You get the drift. I don't want to get lost in that example. Virtuous cycles and magnets of global excellence and stature, that is our primary focus. All that I'm saying is the academic project drives teaching, research, internationalization and reputation. Right? Teaching, research, internationalization and reputation drive global excellence and stature. We get the lot. We've got to get this right, yeah? And then finally, global excellence and stature in turn influences rankings. You see my kind of logic that I'm arguing for and suggesting? It's not the other way around. The other way around says global excellence and stature actually drive our academic project. But these are difficult issues. I'm sorry I've taken a little bit more of your time, but I hope that this has assisted us in some reflections, some rational and passionate and compassionate reflections on the challenge facing us as we seek to advance global excellence and stature from our bootstraps up. But it's got to become a university and state project. It's got to become a university and accrediting and funding councils project. It can't just be a project of us, and then there's got to be a BRICS project at the same time, and we're going to chat about that much later. I've got a few ideas and suggestions about that, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rensburg. That was a very thought-provoking keynote address, and I'm sure for the rest of the 2 days of this conference we are going to think about the points that you mentioned and deliberate on these issues. I would now like to invite our Registrar Professor Y.S.R. Murthy to share some concluding remarks. And there's actually some tea served outside, I'm told, but we are running a bit late for the next session.
It has been a wonderful and fascinating inaugural session. I want to thank both Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Additional Secretary, University Grants Commission, as well as Professor Rensburg for their thought-provoking and excellent addresses. In fact, they have set the stage for the coming sessions dealing with research, data, benchmarking, and eminence, etc. And keeping in view the clock, I want to be brief, and I want to thank many others who are responsible for organizing this conference, particularly my colleagues in the IIHED, International Institute for Higher Education Research and Capacity Building, and also Orbit, Office of Ranking, Benchmarking and Institutional Transformation, particularly Abhinav Madan, and also Dr. Jagdish Batra from the English Language Center for their contribution. And we will not break for tea, but also we'll quickly move on to the next session. And I request our Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajkumar, to present a memento to Dr. Pankaj Mittal as a token of our appreciation. Please give a big applause.